Right now we're talking about what happened in 1990 on this day.
Oh, Chris Sabo had great goggles. What else happened in 1990?
I bought a bottle of Drakkar, I believe, on this day in 1999.
What else happened in 1990? Joe Montana won another Super Bowl.
So what happened was Roseanne Barr sang the National Anthem.
Please don't play it again.
And
No, I said please don't play it.
now, what seemed to be a big moment at the time really it's not forgotten by people that were aware, but someone slightly younger has no recollection of this story whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
to them, Roseanne got canceled because she said some stuff while her show was revamped. This is Roseanne 33 years ago, and the world's reaction was disrespectful, unpatriotic, rude, and
the president, George H.W. Bush at the time.
Yeah,
said
the OG Bush.
Said it was disgraceful. He actually spoke about this national anthem.
And then he said, no new taxes.
Yeah.
Thousand
points
a lot.
What did anyone expect? Roseanne Barr was never a singer. She was a comedian. Oh, but she did do the old crotch grab, didn't she, and spit? That was also part of the controversy.
She was trying to act like she was a baseball player.
Right, that was it.
But the way people took it was she was spitting on the national anthem.
There it is.
And you know, the crotch grab, the spit, the terrible vocals. One more time, Ramos.
Oh, don't.
All right, that's enough. You owe me new headphones, Ramos.
If there were social media then, she got dragged for that, and there was no TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. So just imagine if that happened today.
She was talked about like she was the enemy. Throughout the years, we've had the honor and privilege of having bright young interns on our show every semester.
We've nurtured young minds.
We've nurtured a lot of young minds that made their way in this industry. We're very proud of that. And we would ask them this question on the air all the time. Hey, welcome to the show. Hey, we're happy to have you here. Chime in. We always wanted our interns to feel at home, be a part of it, and not to be shy. Wanted to give them that fun opportunity to get to know them, make a star out of them, let them shine a little bit. We would always ask them, hey, do you know about the blue dress? And
perhaps
9 times out of 9, they wouldn't.
An inappropriate question, but we were on an uncensored Sirius XM platform. But if you asked any kid that was in their 20s,
inappropriate? It's part of history.
Or 30-ish now, right? Over the last 15 years or so, you ask any younger person, hey, what do you know about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky? It is wild. And I'll tell you why, everybody. Older people, if you're like 35, 40 or older, you're like, oh, I know. If you were younger, this is just high school textbook material.
Who's going to tell you that? Yeah. Who's going to teach you about the blue dress? Monty might be looking at us right now like...
No, I remember this.
Oh, okay. Monty's
do you know
what about the... Bo might not know about the
Do you know
blue dress.
the gross, dirty details of everything?
If
I say cigar...
Yes,
do you,
yeah, I know.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But younger people that learned about this in school... They don't know those details because how do you tell those vulgarities
cigar
to a... Well, that's a part of the story.
I know, but they don't teach you that in school, I imagine, unless you lived it.
He did what?
Yeah, and your parents aren't going to tell you, yeah, Bill Clinton cigar.
So, dude, if you were a preteen or younger during the Clinton administration, do you think your parents or teacher were telling you what Bill Clinton did on a dress or what he did with a cigar, any of this stuff? So we've had people say, no, you guys, you're pranking me. You're messing with me. No, come on.
So, to tie it back to the worldwide leaders of nonsense, Covino and Rich on Fox Sports Radio, what are some of the other stories that may have gotten lost that we know because we lived it, but younger people might have forgotten? A la Roseanne,
I got one.
A la the blue dress. How about, was there a Vince Coleman story?
He threw the fireworks at fans in New York. But I don't know if that was a big story out here.
But I remember that.
I think the one that always comes to mind because I don't think Covino's dating like an 18-year-old. His girlfriend's like 30, but still. She's younger.
She's 31.
Mike Piazza's number. I could say I'm the champion. I'm the champion of the number game. Sorry, guys.
For our new Monday game, prime numbers.
So anyone that never got to experience O.J. Simpson as a football player, as an actor, and as a broadcaster, and a spokesman for Hertz and all these companies, Isotoner, everything O.J. did, he was the most loved man. If you watch any of the OJ documentaries, he was the one African-American man that, like, even racist white dudes were like, well, I like OJ. He was the most loved dude on planet Earth.
And then Arsenio Hall took his spot.
Yeah, so
I love Arsenio and OJ.
yeah. So when you tell someone that didn't live it before the alleged murder, they're like, whoa, OJ was like loved? And you have to tell someone like, no, that would be like Michael Strahan or Shaquille O'Neal or like one of the most beloved athletes turned broadcasters that the world loves. That would be like Shaquille O'Neal going on a murder spree.
You're right. My girlfriend doesn't believe that. My girlfriend does not believe how likable. I mean, the dude was in movies and commercials. He was the guy.
And he was on our Southwest flight.
And he was. You're right. But she didn't live it the way we lived it.
Oh,
she was
man.
alive, but she didn't live it the way we lived it.
In the Naked Gun movies. Come on.
If you weren't alive watching the NBA Finals, when they're like, wait a minute, who's running from the police?
Right. It's different.
Split screen NBA Finals and OJ car chase?
I got one, Rich.
Hundreds of people standing up on the overpasses.
Dude,
Right.
it was wild. So this goes along with the idea of if you didn't live it, it's sort of hard to understand that. During the break, I was telling Ramos, like, listen, I'll never understand Beatlemania, like women were fainting at Paul
Yeah, but
McCartney.
you
Like,
know
oh, like I'll never understand it. I love the Beatles' music; it's great classic rock, but we'll never understand what it meant when they came to America. When Elvis was shaking his hips on TV, and people were
some
like, oh.
things just were big in the moment, and we were prisoners of the moment, as Danny G loves to say, but it didn't have enough weight to stand the test of time, a la Roseanne singing the National Anthem. That was a big deal. Vince Coleman throwing fireworks and explosives at fans.
Yeah.
When that happened, that was a big story, but it didn't have any legs. Wasn't there a rumor that Kevin Mitchell did something with a cat?
Well, yeah, cut a cat's head off. Yeah, they were all.
But I don't even know if that's real, but it was a rumor. But I remember that story. Some young kid now, they wouldn't know that. They might not even know Kevin Mitchell caught that home run barehanded, right? Because when's the last time you saw that highlight? That's a great highlight.
Yeah.
I got one.
Hey, what you got?
I got
Mods?
one that just happened and I just found out. I did not know that Rob Lowe had a
Sex tape?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big deal.
I had no idea.
Juicy.
Just found this out, no joke, a week ago. I had to look it up. I was like, "You're lying."
Well, you
Rob
didn't-
Lowe,
you didn't have to watch it
the
multiple
Rob
times.
Lowe. No, I couldn't help it. I'm just kidding.
You didn't have to order it on DVD.
I could not believe it because Rob Lowe is like such a right now
Yeah.
lovable guy, and like when I heard
he
this,
sort of like honestly, if that happened in a different time period,
right. I
That show he's on, El Paso 911 or something like that, or
Reno, no, that's a funny one. No, 911.
it's something, but it's
Yeah.
like El Paso,
Austin,
Texas,
I think.
Austin.
Yeah.
something like that.
No, that was very controversial at the time.
you
for
know,
sure.
you know,
I
it's an
remember
interesting
that.
one for someone that didn't live it, and that's the conversation here. If you didn't live it, hard to understand it. Mm-hmm. Covino was just on a family trip to the Jersey Shore. You just told me you're forgetting one of your best examples.
Let's hear it.
Covino is on the Jersey Shore, with his family, and you said you heard your brother-in-law trying to explain to your nephew how big Michael Jackson was in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's like
it's
that
a
you
hard
need-
thing to explain to a little kid. It's like Taylor Swift times 5. You know, there's no way to really explain, because they didn't live it, how big he was worldwide, the worldwide international impact.
Wait, you mean
of a Michael Jackson.
everyone wanted to be that weird guy with the glove? Yes, somehow, yeah. Yes, around the world,
What's wrong with his nose?
everyone loved that guy.
Yeah,
They,
but
like,
no one cared. Everybody loved him.
Wait, he was in like in a boy band? Well, sort of a boy band. It was the family, the Jackson 5. And,
Why does he look so different when he was little?
Wait,
I
he
mean,
was, he
well-
was black, then he was white? Well, sort of.
It's an interesting to hear. I was witnessing my brother-in-law try to explain this to my nephew, and it's like, this kid will never get it, and it's a hard thing to explain because he didn't live it.
What you got, Ramos?
So my daughter, they like Disney stuff, and Brother Bear was a big movie, right? And Phil Collins sang the song, right? And so my daughter, I was playing a Genesis song from like 1984, a big hit song,
Yeah.
and she's like, God, that sounds just like the guy that does that, Brother Bear. I go, it is. It's Phil Collins. It's his band, Genesis. And she goes, yeah. I go, you got to look at it like, let's say Harry Styles was still in One Direction. And they
Yeah.
were making albums and being hits. And then he went on this solo stuff, and he was big. And then went back to One Direction, and they kept hitting. That's what Phil Collins was. He was solo artist, #1 songs.
By the way, you know what's so hard for a young person to understand, too? how this old-looking, I heard someone say this on social media, so I'm quoting a social media thing. He looks like an old, like, Russian woman almost. Someone who looks like
He looks like Gallagher, the guy that smashed watermelons.
He looks like he's in his 60s in 1980-something making pop radio hits. You can't look like that in today's world and make pop hits.
Unless you're Ed Sheeran.
Yeah,
Who I love, my favorite. He's my number one dude.
When you think about Huey Lewis and Phil Collins, they look like old guys making pop hits.
Right.
That doesn't work in today's world.
Yeah,
I'll give you
people
another
don't understand
one.
that. So.
And, unless you lived it. There's young guys we worked with in sports. You know, before Fox Sports Radio, we worked at ESPN with a bunch of young dudes. And we would make references. And it's funny because Rich and I, again, we're in our early 40s, but we feel like we're 20-something.
Yeah.
So we'd be talking to these dudes, and we would see that they have no idea what we're talking about. We're like, oh, my God, they don't know. We would talk about, and Brett Favre when he sent that pick, and he had, that pick, Brett Favre, and he had Crocs on, and that controversy when Brett Favre sent the.
What are you talking about?
They're like, what are you talking about? Brett Favre sent that pick, and we're like, you don't know that story, and how would they? Because they were little, they were younger, and it kind of got forgotten about.
I think I made a reference recently. You know what it was? I was playing Immaculate Grid, my new favorite little Wordle game, and I was playing the NFL version. And it was a Falcon with over 1,000-yard season, and I did Andre Rison. I made a reference like, didn't someone try to burn down his house?
Oh,
there's a girl from TLC.
Yeah, Left Eye.
Left Eye burned down his house.
She put all his sneakers in the bathtub and lit them on fire.
And,
What?
And,
And it burned his mansion down.
but it was a big story.
She didn't mean to burn the whole house down. But that's what
Lisa
happened.
Left Eye Lopez of TLC burnt his place down. Like, huge
Down.
story.
They had a fight. They were in a breakup or something. She burnt his house down.
Wow.
I mean, it's not funny. It's just funny that what was so big in the moment, a la Roseanne Barr singing the national anthem, disgracing the flag and the country and grabbing her crotch and spitting, is just a forgotten moment unless you lived it.
Mm-hmm. Unless you lived it, hard to understand. Are there any others that come to mind?
Which also puts things in perspective for you, Rich. Like you said, the Beatles. I'm sure there's a lot of things our parents and previous generations are like, they don't fully grasp that part.
And I like the point that you guys make about it's hard to understand because if you didn't live it, because you can know about things.
Right.
Like Rich and I talked about this. Like we weren't around during 1863, but we know President Lincoln, right? We all right. But you weren't there, so there was probably things that went on that you needed to be there, and that's where I think the difference is. You didn't live the moment, but you know about it.
Yeah, and you know what?
difference.
There's a generation of kids now, not to get all morbid, but there's a generation of kids now that were born post 9/11. We lived it. I wasn't at the World Trade Center, but I was in Manhattan that day. I saw the chaos. It was the worst day. We lived it. Covino and I was living in New York City at that time in my life. And, there's kids now that it's a history book item, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to point out here, right?
I mean, they still play a video. Like, if I see a video on that thing, I still tear. I get really emotional. And it was 22 years ago, but it feels like it was yesterday sometimes when you see it. And you're right, kids, it's just a book thing like 9/11, and it just kind of...
Also, along those lines, really quick, Rich, was like third grade for us, I think. People don't realize nowadays how big space shuttle launches were for us as children.
Danny G, that is a great one because people don't realize the whole idea of like, I want to be an astronaut. NASA backed down big time. There was a time in the 80s where
Space camp.
It was such a big deal.
Yeah.
Space camp.
Go get the audio video cart because the kids would roll it in. And then we would all watch the space shuttle blast off.
Danny,
it would take
from Florida.
It would take 30 minutes before the teachers figured out how to do it, though.
Yes.
Right.
The TV VCR with that rope around the top on the cart. But you know what?
Some 80-year-old lady.
I think a lot of us, if you're around our age, if you're 40ish or so, you remember being in school when they wheeled in the TV and you saw the Challenger explode.
Yeah, so
horrible.
traumatic.
And you remember, and you know what it was? Because the teacher, McAuliffe,
Christine McAuliffe
was on the space shuttle. I remember teachers like crying.
Yeah, because
the
schools were extra plugged in to everybody watching that. And at my elementary school, we had a teacher who was a runner-up to being on the shuttle.
Wow.
And everybody went home. It was a disaster.
I mean, that's a serious one, right? That's definitely in the history books. I got a stupid one. people like Monty would have had no idea.
Please,
I don't know if it was Joe or Phil Necro, but do you guys remember when they're like, he's cheating, he's doctoring up the ball, and they go to check him, and he empties his pockets out, and a nail file comes flying out. You know what I mean? Like,
that was always on those blooper
Yes.
yeah,
videos.
we
like,
remember.
He also
I'm
looked like our
innocent.
grandfather, right?
It's like, what did he try to do? There's cameras
Danny,
everywhere.
I was a
he
kid.
trying to like bamboozle the umpires?
I was a kid, and I was like, why is someone's grandpa pitching? Phil Necro looked
Or how about-
65 when he was like
Oh,
35.
yeah. I mean, that happened. How about when Sammy Souser had the corked bat?
Yeah.
And it exploded right there on the field. I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen that clip.
But
You know,
these
'cause
are
they didn't live it.
These are fun examples and some
And what did he
sad
say?
ones.
It was a practice bat?
Yeah, practice bat.
A practice corked bat.
Yo, Monty, do you know the rumor about Cal Ripken Jr. and Kevin Costner?
Oh.
Oh no, maybe, but not right now at the top of my head.
All
I
right,
feel
so,
like
so Cal Ripken Jr., the Iron Man, most games played consecutively in Major League Baseball history, beating Lou Gehrig. Like
Yeah.
this is a big deal. We were kids. It's like, yo, is it possible? It's unbeatable. No player's ever going to beat this guy. There's not guys that go 2 seasons without
No
missing a game.
way.
So Cal Ripken Jr. is approaching every year, getting closer and closer. And there's a rumor that Cal Ripken Jr. forgot something at his house. Correct me if I'm wrong, Spot. You're from the Maryland area. You went to college there. You know the story. So Cal Ripken Jr. apparently forgets something at home, turns around, goes back to his house, and catches his wife sleeping with Kevin Costner.
ooh,
And gets in a fight. Police are involved, and they make it seem like Camden Yards has an issue where they had to cancel the game because of lighting or the field or something just to keep his streak alive. Now, Cal Ripken Jr. has since said that is BS.
They both
honestly,
denied it.
If you bring it up, Cal Ripken Jr. gets very mad about it because he's like, "That don't." And Costner is even like, "Don't even." If you bring it up, I'm walking out. But it was a rumor that when we were kids, it's like, "Yo, is that true?"
August 14th, 1997.
that's crazy.
Is when that game happened.
Yeah.
And
I
if
got
they're
one
getting
more
mad,
that Monty and anyone younger will never know. Do you guys remember Ruben Rivera when he was on the Yankees? What he did? Cousin of Mariano Rivera.
Didn't he steal Derek Jeter's glove?
He was stealing gloves and selling them.
Yeah, he was selling Derek Jeter's like stuff.
Can you imagine like your teammates selling your equipment for money? But again, story didn't have any legs, but at the moment it was like, wow, I can't believe it. Again, just like Roseanne Barr disgracing the country all these years ago on this day.
33 years ago today. Oh, say